Hey everyone, it's Strange Michael. I hope you're doing well today. March is going to be a busy year this year in 2024. I have 3 franchises with a new edition coming out in theaters that I'm going to try to see if I can. But I want to review for you, but also I have to be honest with you. It's going to be difficult because Dune comes out March 1st. Not a big Dune guy. Never read the book, saw the David Lynch film, haven't seen the Denis Villeneuve, however you say his name. Haven't seen that yet. His remake, part 1, whatever. Part 2's coming out. Then you have Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, which I'm actually really excited about, which will tie into this review in just a moment. And then you have another franchise, which is the new Godzilla x Kong movie, which is another MonsterVerse film following Godzilla 2014's movie. And I'm super excited for Ghostbusters and Godzilla, but not so much Dune, but I still want to cover the previous 2 films so I can be caught up for you guys. Number 1, this review is really to focus on one of those franchises. I thought I'd go ahead and get out of the way, because Dune is only 2 movies. I can knock that out in a couple of days, so I'll review that at some point. So deal with me in the meantime as I review the Ghostbusters franchise. This review, of course, is for the first original 1984 film that I have in this 2-pack right here, and I plan on covering all of the films. The only reason I'm doing this, and the only reason I'm really excited for the new Ghostbusters film, is because, number 1, I didn't know it was coming out until about 2 weeks ago, because I rented Afterlife. I realized it came out in 2021. It's now almost 3 years later, and I still have not seen that film until now, and I really enjoyed that. It may be my favorite Ghostbusters film, because, just so you know, never been a die-hard Ghostbusters guy. I was a Star Wars guy, I was a Halo guy, Call of Duty, all of those kinds of franchises when it came to games and stuff. Big Dragon Ball Z guy, Yu Yu Hakusho, so on and so on. But when it came to films, I was never obsessed with Ghostbusters like a lot of people my age were. You know, I was born 10 years after the film came out. But the OG 84 film is considered a classic, and I have a lot to say about it. So I'm going to see that one, part 2, part 3. Yeah, I have it. And I wanted to talk about the video game at some point, if I get the time. I can't promise I can cover this, but I might try to, because that is the real Ghostbusters 3, despite my enjoyment of Afterlife, and despite my so bad it's good enjoyment of this SNL piece of crap. So, first and foremost, let's talk about that OG 84 film. What is Ghostbusters about? Well, it is directed by Ivan Reitman, who surprisingly didn't do a lot in his career when it came to films. He was mostly a producer more than an actual director, but he did direct this one, and I think he also directed number 2, I believe. I could be wrong about that, so don't hold me to it. But anyway, he did a lot of other things like Kindergarten Cop and Junior with Schwarzenegger. He did a lot of things like that, surprisingly enough, very much like his son. His son, who did Afterlife and I believe Frozen Empire, again, don't hold me to it, they didn't really stick to just like these big budget movies. They didn't really do that. And you could kind of argue that Ghostbusters is that, but you could also argue on the other side that it's really not. This isn't just a horror film. It's one of the earliest horror comedies, in my personal opinion. Kind of like alongside something like Evil Dead 2. This is a very dry, humored film. It's like if you took The Office and had it meet something like Tucker and Dale versus Evil. It's kind of like that, but more of a ghost-centric film. Now, Ghostbusters is basically about a group of 3 men played by Bill Murray, Harold Ramis, and Dan Aykroyd, who I love all 3 of these guys individually and in this movie. They're a blast. They are what carry the film, as well as Ernie Hudson, who comes in later on, who is also there quite a bit. Love him as well, one of my favorite actors of all time. These 3 gentlemen, then 4 gentlemen, basically, just the first 3, start off a business called Ghostbusters because they're into paranormal activity stuff and trying to study that. They start a business in New York City called Ghostbusters, and they start to realize there's a big rise in ghost hunting starting to happen, a lot of ghost sightings for some reason, that may be kind of a prophecy of something upcoming, something big, some evil, certain people they know are becoming possessed. Very interesting stuff. It's not really a dedicated horror film. Like I said, it's kind of a comedy more than anything. Everybody knows Ghostbusters. A lot of you 80s kids out there love and adore Ghostbusters, and I understand why. Because for its time, I would say it's one of the most creative films ever made. Everything from the laser gun packs that they wear to the car itself. How could you not love the Ghostbusters mobile car, whatever you want to call the thing, with its siren, the look of it, all of it. It's just awesome. This movie has so much to offer, not only just as a comedy, but if you love practical effects mixed with special effects and CGI at that time, which some of it has not aged the best, but it is what it is. if you love that kind of thing, if you love monster films, if you love comedy, no matter what you really like, this movie has a little bit of something for everybody. It really does, and I have to give it the benefit when I say that, when I talk about Ghostbusters, despite not being a hardcore fan and thinking it's one of the best movies ever made. I will say, as I said a moment ago, it is one of the most creative films I've ever seen. It has a lot of really good jokes, and I think there's a lot of jokes that completely, to me, fall flat, even for the dry humor kind of tone that this movie has. If a movie could have a nasally voice as the tone for it, Ghostbusters is that, in my personal opinion. And I like that, I admire that, but I also kind of don't. You have a lot of other stars in here too, like Sigourney Weaver, who I've never thought was pretty until I saw this film. I thought this was her best performance, in my personal opinion, because she's actually really good here. Despite everybody loving Alien and Aliens, she's good in Aliens. Alien, not so much. But she's good here. Rick Moranis, one of my favorites of all time, who I first saw back in the day when I was a kid in Spaceballs, and loved the guy ever since. He's in here as her next door neighbor, who's kind of a nerd who has a thing for Sigourney Weaver. And that's pretty much the cast here. Annie Potts plays the secretary of the Ghostbusters. She's great. Don't know her from anything else. It's just me. Maybe she's done a lot of stuff. Maybe she's won Oscars. I don't know. But she was really fun here. And I love her persona. I love her jokes. By the way, the film was written by Harold Ramis and Dan Aykroyd. I almost forgot Harold Ramis' name. Rest in peace, fella. I always liked the personality to this movie. Not only in it, with the three men, really the four men that we follow here for Ghostbusters, but also the movie has a personality. Again, it's kind of like Breakfast Club. Breakfast Club was like the ultimate John Hughes personality put into a film. It really was. And a lot of John Hughes films are like that, but Breakfast Club was really the solidification of that in the best possible way. I would be willing to bet that this is like the best way to have Bill Murray's type of sense of humor as a movie. Again, that very nasally voice that Ghostbusters just feels in tone, and I love it. It's not perfect, as I said. A lot of people are going to get mad at me over that feeling and that opinion, but it's just not. If you didn't grow up on Ghostbusters, I feel like it's a situation as if you didn't grow up on Power Rangers. You can't really respect and love Power Rangers the way it deserved unless you grew up on it. A grown adult is not going to watch it and really love it. I just don't think that's possible. Maybe the same thing with Dragon Ball Z for that example. But somebody else could do that with Star Wars. Somebody else could do that with Star Trek or something else, some other franchise, Harry Potter, whatever. You didn't have to be there to see it and appreciate it now if you're a younger person. Ghostbusters, I kind of disagree with people who don't see that in my perspective. Again, I saw it quite a bit when I was a kid, but that was over 10 years after it come out, and I've only seen it a handful of times in my life because I just don't adore it like a lot of people. I think the script is perfectly refined. I think the pacing is some of the best pacing in movie history for a film, for a comedy or otherwise. It really flies through. And again, the special effects, especially when they're practical, kind of overlaid on a regular old shot, it looks really great. Sometimes. This film used to scare the hell out of me when I was a kid, especially Slimer and the librarian at the beginning of the film. They scared the hell out of me. There's a lot of cool costumes and stuff done for that, and the creation of the Ghostbusters monsters for this movie are really cool. I really appreciate that and like the design of many of them, if not all of them for that matter. Some are a little bit of a cop-out, like these dog monsters, but you know, aside from that, it's got some really cool stuff in here that I really appreciate when it comes to design, because it's a big thing that you look at movies nowadays in 2024, and movies in general, just if they have big budgets, they don't have creative monster designs. You know, it's kind of a shame, in my personal opinion. I guess we can move along now to talk about, like, the soundtrack. I mean, everybody's performance is great, so why would I even bother talking about that? Everybody's good. Even down to Ernie Hudson, who's maybe in a half an hour of this movie, are wonderful. Bill Murray is the showing star of the entire film. I love him. He's great here. Harold Ramis is great. Dan Aykroyd is good. His weird old self. I love that guy. I would have killed, by the way, to have a Ghostbusters movie that starred the Three Stooges, even if Shemp was involved as well. As much as I don't like Shemp as much as the other guys, like Curly, I would have loved to have had a Moe, Larry, and Curly, and possibly Shemp, or whoever else, Joe Dorita, I don't know. Ghostbusters style type of movie back in the day. That would have kicked ass, man. But anyway, get to the music. The soundtrack is fantastic. It's not only like 1950s and 60s music, but you have the Ghostbusters theme song that to this day is an absolute classic song. Not just a classic theme song that everybody can hear just the melody of and know where it's from. My wife, who does not like movies, knows the Ghostbusters theme song because it's a cultural icon, man. It always has been for like 40 years now. It's iconic. It really is, and there's a big reason for that. And the fact that Ghostbusters didn't turn into a humongous franchise with sequel after sequel, obviously it's Bill Murray's fault. We all say that all the time. It's true. But it's surprising that they never went further than a couple of cartoons and a second movie, and that's really it, as far as I know. I guess there were no books or anything. I don't know. But the music is wonderful, and it really brings this movie to life even more. If you didn't have the soundtrack that they have here, or the score they have here for Ghostbusters, I don't think it would have been as strong of a film. Because it's strong as it is, even if I don't love it like a lot of people. But it's surprising to me how important that is to make this movie really come to life a lot of the time, despite its great practical effects, despite the stop-motion animation mixed in with live-action filming. A lot of that stuff really comes to life because of the goofiness of the soundtrack that I love so much. This film is really cool for what it is, even if it's not for me that much. And, you know, it's kind of surprising, because I like a lot of dry humor things, even though I'm not British. So, all that being said, Ghostbusters, the OG original 1984 film, is it good? Hell yeah, absolutely it's a good movie. Do I love it? No. Just don't. I understand the love for it, for people who grew up with it, people who had the Ghostbusters costumes around Halloween time before I was born. I get that. But it just hasn't aged that well. It hasn't. Some parts of it, I would say even 75% of it, really has aged well. The other portion, no. The other 25%, no. Stop lying to yourself. Anyway, Ghostbusters, the original 1984 film, if I had to rate it on a 5-star basis, I think I would easily give this 4 out of 5 stars for what it is. It's definitely above average. It's definitely creative, and for what it is, I think it really masters what it is, despite whether I love it or not. I think it's very entertaining most of the time. I think the jokes that do land are good enough and iconic enough, like the big Twinkie joke, for example, to stick around in your head rent-free, which is something I think is worth saying about a lot of films back in the day that are not, that are more rewatchable compared to something that's coming out nowadays that's not a popcorn flick, you know? And you could argue Ghostbusters is a total popcorn flick, frankly, because it's just trying to entertain you, and it does a really good job at that. Despite whether I love it or not, despite whether I consider myself a fan of it, and I kind of don't, to be honest with you, I can admire when something is well made and when it's really enjoyable for what it is. With that being said, 4 out of 5 stars for me for Ghostbusters 1984. Have you seen the film? If you're watching this, you probably already have. What do you think about it? Are you excited about it? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Let me know everything you think about my review and everything else about the movie down in the comment section down below. Are you a die-hard fan or are you not? I'd love to hear all that down below too, so I don't have to feel like the only man on the island, you know? Do you like Ghostbusters 2? Do you like the retitled Answer the Call? Do you like Afterlife? I'm really surprised by Afterlife, so I can't wait to talk about that here soon. Anyway, thank you all for watching, guys. Hopefully you tune in for more Ghostbusters reviews leading up to Frozen Empire, as well as the Dune reviews I talked about, and as well as the Godzilla reviews I talked about, because again, I'm just going to talk about the MonsterVerse films, not the original Godzilla run from Toei, for that new Godzilla x Kong movie. So anyway, thank you all for watching, guys. God bless you all, and goodbye.